a lot of inner strength to make that leap. It takes a lot of trust in the party itself. And I think it just goes to show that people who are coming over and joining us at a council level can see that this is a political party which is now taking local elections very seriously indeed. So please put your hands together for our councillors. And now the thanks are out the way. Look, ladies and gentlemen, we are going places. We're really going places. This is a party which is on the move. It's a movement. If you look at where we are in the opinion polls at the moment, I think last week, Survation had us on 22%. That's 22% for a general election. We're polling over 30% when it comes to those European elections. Elections which we are projected to go on and win next year. And it's not just the polls where we're having great success. We're having great successes in by-elections up and down the country. We're not just polling well and doing well in the south, like we did in Eastleigh, where we got around 29% of the vote. The last 4 by-elections in the north of England, in what's considered to be hardline Labour areas, working class areas, UKIP has finished second. UKIP is the opposition to Labour now in the north of England. The Liberal Democrats are finished. People will not go out and vote Conservative, and many people in those working class communities feel that the Labour Party has not just let them down, but has turned its back on them altogether, and in many cases, in the words of the former British Prime Minister, it thinks that they are bigots because they dare to question the amount of people that are coming into this country. It's not bigoted, it's not racist to question the amount of people that are coming here at the moment. You've only got to read the newspapers today to see that they underestimated the amount of Eastern Europeans that have come here in the last 10 years. In fact, the Office of National Statistics believes that there are 500,000 that have not been accounted for. How can you not account for a city the size of Liverpool? Our borders are wide open. We have no control over our borders whilst we're members of the European Union. And what UKIP is saying is that we need firm but fair immigration policies, because it cannot make any sense, ladies and gentlemen, to have an open door to the whole of Europe when 22% of our young people are unemployed, when 1 million of our own kids stay at home every day because they can't get jobs. It makes no sense to invite even more people into the job market when you can't get jobs for your own. And in UKIP, what we're saying is do something about it. Let's have a system like Australia or Canada, a points-based system. If we need your skills, please come to this country and work. If we don't need your skills, then quite frankly, we won't allow people to come here and claim benefits from day one. That is fair, but it's also fair. And there's nothing racist about wanting to control your own borders. There's nothing xenophobic about wanting to control your own borders. In UKIP, we say it is quite simply common sense.
Yeah.
And the term common sense is what this party is about. I mean, Nigel went on his common sense tour of Britain and was filling rooms with 400, 500 people, because people are crying out for common sense. People want their politicians to talk about the things they talk about in the pub on a Friday night. And it doesn't matter whether you're middle class or working class or white or black or red or blue or from the north or from the south. People want common sense policies. Take education. which is my area. It cannot be right that the top 8 schools in this country send more kids to Oxford and Cambridge than the bottom 2,000 put together. It cannot be right that there were more working class kids at Oxford and Cambridge, like Clive, in the 1960s than there is now. What we need is to recreate a society which is based on merit, a society which is based on ability and not wealth. It cannot be right that if you're middle class, you have better opportunities in life than if you're working class. It cannot be right that you can buy yourself into a decent area to send your kids to a better school. All schools should be quality, whether they're in poor areas or rich areas. And the only way that you return to this is by bringing academic selection back into schools. We need to bring grammar schools back into this country because it gives working class kids the opportunity to better themselves, break out to their communities and go on to universities like Oxford and Cambridge. And that's why UKIP wants to see a grammar school in every single town in this country. And it's not just about academia. It's about vocational education as well. I don't think it's a coincidence that in Germany they have kept their manufacturing industry, because in Germany vocational education and academia are seen as equal. They're given parity. What we need is, rather than sending 50% of our 18-year-olds to university, what we need is to get many of these kids into apprenticeships, and to get these kids into apprenticeships we need quality vocational education in this country. And that's why UKIP is fully behind creating more vocational schools and pushing for parity between academia and vocational education. We do not believe that it is right to send 50% of kids at 18 to university. What we want to see is a system where that is reduced to around 25%, and then what we can do is we can do away with tuition fees altogether, and we can go back to a grant system for our students which will encourage working class kids to go to university. Yeah. I think we have common sense policies on defence. We don't believe that there should be defence cuts at a time when the world, particularly the Middle East, is in a pretty precarious position. You've only got to look at what's happened in the past week in Egypt, a country now which is divided down the middle between the Muslim Brotherhood and the Liberals and the army. It's a country which could slip very soon into civil war. A civil war which is not so different than what is going on in Syria. It makes no sense for us to have defence cuts at a time when the world is in a dangerous place. What we should be doing is ensuring that we don't get ourselves embroiled in the Middle East, and the first thing that we should do is not give arms or money or any sort of intelligence to these so-called rebels in Syria, who quite frankly last week beheaded the Catholic priest and his assistants, and they are committing human rights abuses right across Syria. We should have nothing to do with it, and I for one don't want to see a drop of British soldiers' blood spilled in Syria. And our boys, our soldiers, the best soldiers in the world, deserve the best equipment. But how do we pay for it? Well, let me throw this idea out at you. We have a foreign aid budget there, which is ring-fenced. £25 million a day we give away in this country in foreign aid. This is your taxation. I wouldn't mind if that foreign aid was going to countries in Africa that needed it, if we could ensure that that money was getting through to the people who needed it, and not to tin pot dictators. But this foreign aid is going to China, it's going to Argentina. Whilst we have defence cuts, we're still giving foreign aid to Argentina. You find that a bit bizarre. It's going to Brazil, which has just taken over us as the 6th largest economy in the world. And it's going to India. India, with its own space programme. India, with its own nuclear weapons. India, which has more billionaires and millionaires than ourselves. What are we doing? This foreign aid is your money. It's your taxation, and it would be better spent here in Britain, not just on our armed forces, but on our schools, on our transport network, and on our NHS. Yeah. We have common sense policies on the environment. My trip up here has only confirmed what I think on this issue. I sit in the Environment Committee in the European Parliament. I watch them vote on this nonsense time after time after time in favour of renewables. I've driven up here. I must have seen 200 wind turbines, and not one single one has been blowing today in the middle of a heat wave. These things do not work. They work 25% of the time when the wind blows. If the wind blows too strongly, they have to turn them off because they're dangerous. If the wind's not blowing, then as today, they don't blow at all. They make rich people richer because you can receive up to £25,000 per turbine on your land. Sir Reginald Sheffield, David Cameron's father-in-law, gets over £300,000 a year to have wind turbines on his land. They make these people rich. They make lords and big landowners very wealthy indeed. But you're paying twice because your energy bills are going up as a result, and you're paying through subsidising these monstrosities through your taxation. In UKIP, we say that this does not make sense. We say that this is unfair to our pensioners, unfair to our poor, unfair to the working class. And in UKIP, we would like to see an end to this wind nonsense. We would like to see every single wind turbine ripped up and consigned to the dustbin of history.
Right.
We are a policy of common sense when it comes to the European Union as well. You only have to look at the madness that has happened this week alone to see how out of touch and out of kilter with the British people this organisation is. This. It's called an e-cigarette. It helps people quit smoking. It's very successful. In fact, it's probably one of the most successful tools over the past 3 years, helping people to quit a habit that is killing people up and down the country. Well, what do you think the idiots in Brussels are going ahead and doing to this? Only yesterday, I sat on the Environment Committee and they voted by 45 to 25 to ban e-cigarettes. So you can't buy them over the counter. You will have to go to your doctor first. Why have they done this? Why have they done this? I put it to you, it's because the big tobacco lobbyists in the commission, and don't forget this is a commission, 27 people who meet in secret with 3,000 working groups. 3,000 working groups made up of big business, multinationals, lobbyists. I'm telling you now, the big tobacco companies are getting these things banned via the European Union because they don't want people to quit smoking. That's what this is all about. Take another example. We have the issue today of the privatisation of the post office. Now, you might think, well, this is a decision by the government because Royal Mail isn't making the money it once was. And you're right, it's not. Royal Mail in the 1990s was making an absolute fortune. It was a state monopoly which was actually making money. Until something called the First Postal Services Directive came from Brussels, which ensured that Royal Mail was forced to sell off its most profitable parts. Then there was a second Postal Services Directive, which made things even worse. The reason why Royal Mail is being privatised is because of EU legislation. And this is where the Labour Party make me sick to my gut. Because the Labour Party are now saying that they are opposed to this. But the author of the First Postal Services Directive was a Labour MEP. And they all voted in favour of it. You cannot believe the lies that these people will tell. You cannot believe the lengths that they will go to in being duplicitous. Take, for example, another piece of madness this week, where we have a foreign court made up of judges in Strasbourg, many of them actually who don't even have qualifications in law. And these people are telling us that life can't mean life. These people are telling us that people like Ian Huntley and Roy Whiting, and Ian Brady's slightly different because he's in Ashworth, people like Bamber, who quite frankly should be locked up for life. Life should mean life. Yeah. When the death penalty was abolished in '69, it was done so with the provision that life would mean life. Life isn't 13 years. If you commit a heinous crime like killing a child, then quite frankly, in UKIP, we believe you should not see the light of day again. Yeah. And of course, next year, we have the European elections. Elections, as I said earlier, which we are projected to go on and win. Of course, we finished 4th in 1999, 3rd in 2004, 2nd in 2009. So where do you think we're going to go next year?
First.
Absolutely. The majority of British MEPs who will be sent back to Brussels will be people who want their own P45. They will be people who want to get out of the European Union. It will send tremors through the corridors of Westminster and panic through the corridors of Brussels.
Right.
We have a fantastic opportunity next year because we have driven the debate on this issue. You know, 10 years ago, only around 20% of people thought that Britain could survive and prosper outside the European Union. That percentage is now well over 60%. And UKIP can pat itself on the back because UKIP has driven the debate in this area. We've educated people. People now know that 75% of the laws of this country are not made by their politicians in Westminster. They begin in this European Commission. People now know that the European Union is costly and bureaucratic. Indeed, I never forget during the 2009 European elections when I realised that actually we cracked it. That I knew at this point UKIP was going to do well. It was when I got into a taxi and all our billboards had gone up all over the country saying the EU cost you £50 million a day. When the billboards go up next year, just try it. And you say to a taxi driver, oh, that European Union. And then when someone turns around to you and goes, oh, bloody hell, mate, do you know that costs you £50 million a day? You know you've got them. And people know now that the European Union is costing this country £53 million a day. Now, I'm going on a show tomorrow called the North West politics show. I've done the North East one on a number of occasions. And one of the subjects which is coming up is EU funding. Now Liverpool, we're told, has been awash with EU funding over the years and EU money. But there's no such thing as EU money. It's a myth. We give it £53 million a day, we get 25 back, and then they tell us how we can spend our own money. This does not make sense. There's no such thing. And the rest of the money is keeping French farmers in the lifestyle that they're accustomed to. I'm sorry, it's British people's money, it's your taxation, and that £53 million a day should be spent in this country, and it shouldn't be being wasted on French farmers or Spanish fishermen. This is an organisation which has halved our fishing fleet since the mid-1970s. It's killed the fishing industry in this country. It's had a detrimental effect on our farming industry. And now, Stephen knows more about this than me, it's after the City of London. This is an organisation that, quite frankly, we shouldn't be part of. And you will hear all sorts of myths next year in this European election. You will hear, oh, well, if we leave the European Union, it will cost 3 million jobs in this country. It will not cost one single job. And I'll tell you why. We run a huge trading deficit with the EU. Since the 1970s, it runs into hundreds of billions of pounds. And there are 12 million jobs on the continent which are dependent on British trade. It might be a devious organisation, but it's not a stupid organisation. When we leave, we want to leave the politics behind. We want to leave the European Commission behind. What we want is a simple free trade deal, which will allow this country then to be friends with our European partners, to trade with our European partners, but not be dictated to. We will then be able to trade with the globe once again. We will then be able to take back our seat on the World Trade Organization, and we will then be able to reignite our links with our friends and kith and kin in the Commonwealth.
Okay.
And we want a referendum. Of course, Cameron's promised a referendum, as you know. I mean, it's just baloney, isn't it? It really is baloney. No. I mean, look, this is a referendum, which is, it's all hypothetical. Hypothetical on winning the next election, which doesn't seem likely. Hypothetical on a renegotiation with an organisation that doesn't want to negotiate. We've tried to renegotiate for 40 years. We haven't been successful. He certainly isn't going to be successful, considering that he's already told the European Union that even though he doesn't know the results of that renegotiation, he will campaign to stay in. I mean, have you ever heard the likes of it? He's going into these renegotiations with one hand tied behind his back already. It's an effort to kick it down the road, ladies and gentlemen. And quite frankly, if he meant it, and if he was serious, he would hold that referendum in this Parliament. And I'll tell you what we're going to do in UKIP, because we know we won't. We're going to turn next year's European elections into the referendum that you should have had. And that's why next year we will go on and we will send over 25 MEPs back to Brussels, including at least one in this region. 2. Now, there aren't just European elections on May the 22nd next year. You have local elections as well. There are 5,000 seats up for grabs across the country. I'm led to believe in this branch alone there are 46 seats which are up. Now, I'm imploring you, please fill all those seats. There is a direct correlation between where UKIP does well in European elections and then goes on to do well in general elections, and where we stand in local elections. And please don't forget that these local elections next year are on the same day as the European elections. People generally will not go in to a voting booth and vote UKIP in Europe and Labour in the locals. They will vote for the same party twice. And don't forget, this will be at the time when we've got leaflets galore going through people's doors, when we've got party political broadcasts with parity with the other political parties, where the whole country will be turned purple with the amount of billboards that we will put up. We aim to get around 1,000 councillors elected next year. So please, put your name forward. This is your opportunity. May the 22nd is the biggest opportunity that UKIP has ever had to make a real breakthrough, not just in national politics with the European elections, but into town halls the length and breadth of Britain. So please put your name forward. So I'm going to finish this by saying, well done, congratulations, this is a region on the march. This is a region which is going into next year's local elections and European elections confident. It's better organised than it ever has been before. It has strong branch structures, but the work is not finished. Yes, let's be confident. Yes, let's give ourselves a pat on the back, but the work is just beginning. So go out next year, please continue to write letters to your local paper. Continue to talk to your friends and spread the UKIP message. And continue to go out and leaflet on behalf of this great party. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for inviting me here tonight. And now, I hope you all enjoy a good drink. Thank you.